Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wynn's Kitchen podcast. I'm your host, Wynn Austin, and the founder and CEO of Wynn's Kitchen. Today, we have a special guest, Marka Basile of Grocery Geeks, a brokerage and marketing company that focuses on CPG emerging brands. Hi, Marka. How are you?
I'm doing great, Wynn. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. And so, Marco, we actually met at the Unify show. I was just walking around and I just loved your energy and we really connected.
We did,
So I
yeah.
really wanted to, I get asked all the time from emerging brands, and I'm talking about like people who are just thinking about getting started in the food or CPG business. And so I just thought it'd be so helpful to have you on the show.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So, Marka, can you tell our listeners like how did you get started? Like, what's your journey, and then what inspired you to start your own brokerage business?
Sure. So I started a lot like you did, just getting out there with my own food company. I had a gluten-free pizza crust and tortilla company back in 2007.
Oh, wow.
And I had launched it into restaurants, grocery stores.
Hmm.
We were in Nature's Best, which is now KeHE.
Hmm.
So that's really how I started, was with, just like you, with my own company. Um, and, a lot like you too, I also had a lot of people asking me with their products and getting started, how do you get started?
Hmm. Hmm.
What are how do you get into this business? And so I started consulting with, and also just working with people who were in the farmers market, who
Yeah.
had products for sale in
Right.
the farmers market, and just working with them to get their product ready for the shelves.
Hmm.
So I would take them from the farmers market into stores and then distribution. And that's really how I started. Very small, really.
Oh, that's awesome. And so, is that what you recommend brands? Would you say the majority of people start in the farmers market before getting on retail shelves?
Some do. I think it's a great testing ground to see what you've got, see what people's, feedback is on
Right.
it, what your sales are like, how how you're getting traction.
Yeah.
Really, it is a good place to be. I don't think it's necessary. I think there's a lot of ways of getting a product out there, putting it on Amazon, going direct to consumer. Those are also great channels to find your customers.
Right. Right. That's
TikTok
like the
Shop.
hardest part.
What?
That's like the hardest part, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Finding the customers.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. And so tell us about, what type of brands and do you typically work with, and when you're talking to people that are thinking about hiring you, like what what is your potential client and what are you looking for in a potential client?
So I work with brands and products from beverage to, um, tea, like ready to drink tea,
Mhm.
household goods, wraps, tortillas, cereal. I mean, it really runs the gamut.
Mhm.
Um, and then what was the second part of that question? How?
Like, what do you look for in a potential client? Like, is there a revenue benchmark that you're looking for them to have, or scalability? Would be I think important.
Yeah, I think I definitely look for companies that have some proven sales,
Hmm.
that they're already, I mean, I'm at the point now where I do like to work with companies that are already maybe in distribution. That makes me really excited because I don't have to do the hard work of getting them into distribution,
Yeah.
which is a lot of legwork. I don't think people really understand how hard it is to herd all the cats so that you can get onboarded and into a distributor.
Right.
So it is nice when they're already in a distributor and selling and they have some good anchor accounts.
Hmm.
And one of the things I really like to do is backfill them with a lot of the independents.
Mhm.
and then also work on getting them into the bigger chains that they want to be in as well.
Mhm.
Like, your Whole Foods or Sprouts, everyone wants those.
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
They don't realize how expensive it is till
exactly.
once you get in, but,
Yeah, so that, and then also looking at, really their marketing and their
yeah,
marketing budget. Like, where are they at with followers? Are they creating that conversation with
mhm,
consumers? How connected are they to their audience? It's
right,
it's really, really important, because getting them on shelf is one thing,
right,
getting them to move from shelf is another. And so having that, you have to have that marketing piece to really be successful in this business.
right.
It's a tough business. They say what, 97% failure rate.
Oh my gosh, I don't wanna hear that. But it is true. It's so hard. This is the hardest, and most expensive business I've ever ventured in. And I want to circle back a little bit regarding distribution because when I was first starting out, I would say end of 2019, 2020, there was not, we were on lockdown and there was not, I felt like as many resources for networking as there is today, even just in 5 years. And I remember being so confused about how do I get into a distributor? And I remember I would contact a retailer and they're like, "Well, do you have a distributor?" And I say, "No." And then they're like, "Oh, we only work with people in a distributor." And then, I contact the distributor and they're like, "Well, do you have a retailer?" So it was like, I remember being so confused. Like, is it the chicken or the egg or which comes
Yes.
first? So can
Yes.
you clarify for, people who are just starting out that maybe are only like doing the farmers markets, doing the direct to independents now, like at what point should they get a distributor? And then how do they get a distributor? Because it was like a question I could not get a straight answer to when I was starting out.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's actually what I was originally talking about when I said I like it when they're already in
Yeah.
distribution. So that's what I'm saying. It's what I call herding the cats, or, just we go along and get pre-commits,
Mhm.
is we get enough retailers to say, yes, I'll take that once it's in
Right.
distribution. So I pretty much have to say, okay, great. Here's the samples. This is what it is. Here's the
Right.
pitch. Would you carry it if it's in the distributor? And they say yes. And I'm like, okay, give me 3 months or 4 months.
Right. Okay.
Another way of doing it is also getting that anchor account,
Mhm.
or getting a couple anchor accounts. You're
Right.
gonna want at least 25 to 30 independent points of
Independent stores.
distribution,
Mhm.
stores, to be successful.
Mhm.
Because, like we said, getting the product to move from shelf is tough in the beginning. So you
Mhm.
have to have enough stores ordering that
Right.
they're going to have the volume, the minimum volume that they want to see in order to stay in distribution.
Right.
So, you can find an anchor account if we're going to talk about this area, like Lassen's.
Mhm.
Maybe then go with another. I love the Down to Earth stores in Hawaii; those are great. Good Earth Natural Foods in Utah. So those are all, like, if you got those three,
Right.
that's a great way of, like, you got those three, and then we can backfill with a lot of the independents as well. But those would be three, and they're smaller anchors, but they're good anchors. They're high volume movers.
Okay. Like say Down to Earth has how, and Lassen's I think has how many stores?
Lessons, I believe, is up to about 15 now.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay. So yeah,
Good Earth.
that's a great anchor account. I got lucky. I got in with Bristol Farms, so that's when I was like, "Oh, okay, this is how it works."
Yes. If you have a retailer like Bristol Farms or Gelson's, they're powerful enough that if once they say, I want this, you're
Yeah.
set up.
Yep. Yeah.
The hard
Awesome.
work is done. But that's not an easy thing to do. And I'm sure getting Bristol took some time.
It took a year. I think Bristol Farms took a year. Lazy Acres took 2 years because he just said, "I like your products, but you have to have uh, distribution." And so, I mean, with Bristol Farms, it was, following up, sending samples, following up, calling. And that's one thing that people don't realize is how, uh, because I didn't have a broker to work with. So and I didn't even really know what I was doing. So I just used my other sales tactics from when I was in banking.
Yeah.
Like, just like the, hey, keep calling till you get a no. And then when you get a no, you wait and then you come back and you call again. So I really feel like whether you have a broker or not, you have to be really tenacious in sales and
Yeah.
thick skin.
Yes. Well,
Mhm.
that's part of that's part of the battle, I think,
Mhm.
with someone like yourself starting off. It's a lot of work
Mhm.
just to get the product ready
Right,
and selling. You're doing other things,
right.
and to be able to sit down and like every day make sure you're making those calls. A lot of people just don't have the bandwidth for it.
Yeah.
And it's not fun, hearing
I
no
have,
can,
I
especially when it's your baby. It's hard to
yes,
hear no, and it can be really discouraging. So there, another reason as well to have someone reach out on your behalf is, just all the things that you don't know.
yes,
You don't know what you don't know.
right,
So having that, expertise, someone who's experienced and knows what they're doing can
yes.
get you there faster.
Right. And I think it could really probably help you save a lot of money or at least know, like, do you talk to them like budget? Like, hey, if you want Whole Foods and I get you in, do you have the scalability and the marketing budget? Do you go over that with your brands?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things that I would talk to them about when they want to get into that bigger retailer
Mhm.
is you got to have the bandwidth in order to market, because
Right.
we're going to get in that store and they're going to want to see movement, and you might be excited when you see purchase orders coming in and
Mm.
you might think, "Wow, this is great." But they have another number in mind as to how much
Right.
movement they want. So, it's really important to know what you need as far as getting on that shelf in that retailer, how much it's going to cost,
Hmm.
and what it's going to take to stay on that shelf and start
Right.
making money.
Right.
And you can't, I mean, as hard as it is, you can make money here. I've seen it. I am here to say it is possible.
I think that's like the best news I've heard.
I don't want to be all doom and gloom, because your hard work and your investment will pay off.
Yeah.
But it's important to be smart, and if you hire someone, listen to their expertise and what
Right.
they're telling you as much as you can, and just go from there.
Right. What are your thoughts on like the retail landscape? Like, do you think it's changed regarding like emerging brands? Like, I feel like there's like a shift from like our COVID times, and then the last couple years, there's like another shift with retailers. Like, do you see any
It's the
trends or?
Yes, I mean, from when I started with my own company to
Mhm.
today, it's
Yeah.
shifted tremendously. I
Hmm.
mean, I can look back at a lot of different time periods and just seeing how much this business has changed, especially in natural channel, where when I first started, it was really natural and conventional they were both separate. They were
Right.
natural, and then all of a sudden Kroger and Albertsons started seeing how much market share they were losing by not having those smaller natural products companies on their shelves. So
Hmm.
they started integrating them into
Hmm.
their stores, which is great. It was great for all these smaller emerging brands. They got to really grow big.
Hmm.
But really, things got they've gotten very homogenous. And then
Mhm.
Whole Foods noticed, well, there's a lot of conventional products that we don't have on our shelves, and we're losing money by not having Cheerios or whatever it is. So
Right,
they started bringing a few little more conventional, still healthier products, but
right.
not, not squeaky clean
Yeah.
products as we think of as maybe natural. But I mean, that was a whole shift. COVID, I mean, everything has got, there's so many companies out there trying to break into this business that it's just gotten more and more competitive. And
Mhm.
I just notice now, even for me trying to call on these stores and these buyers, that it's harder. It's every year it just gets harder. They just get that many more phone calls
Wow.
and more products out there. So it's just a lot more competitive.
Wow.
Are you seeing that as well?
I just, I do notice when I'm looking at the grocery store shelves that there are brands that are no longer there. And so it's very scary, right? So, I've talked to you about this before. For 2025, my goal is really just growing with the retailers I've already gotten. Like, maybe I'll get some, independent boutique stores through Fair and local mom and pops, which it always does well there. And I have a lot of those I have like a neighborhood market in San Francisco, 4 stores, Luke's local. Never done a demo, only walked into one store ever, and I'm getting reorders there. So I think, just kind of like finding ways to even leveraging that even to a different level instead of, and really getting that investment back and build deepening that relationship over growing new stores. But I do find that, with the larger stores, I've been getting a lot of the runaround. Like they say they want Asian, they want healthy, and but then it gets to a point, there comes to a point with like there's a price point issue where it's still they want premium, I feel like, but at the conventional prices, which is impossible for a smaller brand, right? We don't have that volume of production to get
Right.
down. So i I just think it's always been so competitive. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a fascinating industry, and and anyone that reaches out to me, I'm just like, I mean, start with your community, see if your neighbors are willing to pay you money first, and
It's true.
see if like, are they rebuying after a week, or are they rebuying after a month? Because you don't have that leeway when it comes to being on shelf, which I had no idea that was like a risk. I was like, oh, I'm on shelf, great, now it's just automatically going to move.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're smart really to define sales as I get a product on shelf and now I'm seeing reorders every month,
Right.
looking for that reorder every week, every month, rather than, gosh, I got onto these shelves and my sales are down and not seeing any reorders. So I need more stores.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that a lot.
Right.
We
That's
need
the
more.
most
Yeah.
tempting part, right? That's the most tempting. Like, oh, like let me get more stores, and then, but I
And
mean,
it's the biggest mistake because you're not learning the lesson. There's a marketing issue. Let's figure out what the marketing issue is. Let's figure out how to talk to the consumer,
mm-hmm,
introduce the product to them, and get it moving from the shelf. And
mm-hmm.
once that happens, then you can move on. Because now you know what to
Right,
do once you're on shelf in the next accounts.
right. What would you say is like the biggest challenge uh, for your business, like working with emerging brands? Like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face?
All of it. No, I think some of the biggest challenges is really working with the client and helping them understand that marketing piece.
Hmm.
And also the expenses that go along with being in distribution.
Mhm.
You know, when people see chargebacks, they always blame the distributor. The retailer's behind that chargeback.
Mhm.
It's they get so mad at the distributor, and they're getting charged back on something that a deal that they made with a distributor. And
Mhm.
so, it's just one of those things that and then once that starts to happen, that negativity can kind of grow,
Mhm.
especially when people start, talking to other CPG owners and they're having the same problem. It's like they just go down a rabbit hole of
Right.
negativity, and it's hard to pull them out of that because
Right.
we have to stay positive and we have to really look like, hey, this is the truth of what's going on. I got your back. I'm watching you.
Mhm.
Distributor isn't killing you. We made this deal. So, that's a challenge.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's such a complex business. Before you started your own business, did you work with another company, or what inspired you to do your tortilla? Like, I think it all starts from that little passion in the beginning, right? Like, that's
Yep.
how we went down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, I started it because my kids were gluten free and they loved pizza. We couldn't eat pizza. They didn't have gluten free crusts out there. So I was trying to make these recipes that weren't very good, and the pizza would stick to the cutting board. And
Mhm.
I was like, my idea was gluten free boboli. That's, I want to have a gluten free boboli where you just take the crust out and put
Yeah.
sauce on it and make it real quick for your kids or family and have a healthy, quick dinner. And so that was kind of the idea behind how I got started. I
Mhm.
wasn't working before. I was a stay at home
Yeah.
mom. So I was just sort of like, I got an idea and I'm going to
I
do
love it. I
it.
love it. I know. I think, one thing about, I think it's a good thing, and also it could be a downfall, is that food entrepreneurs are so passionate. Like, we're trying to make the world better. We're trying to solve, other people's problems. Like, for me, I solved my own problem. And then I noticed other people were very interested in, having an Asian sauce that's healthy and doesn't have sugar. But I think that the downside, and I work hard to manage this, is that they can also be very emotional. I've been a business owner in other industries for a long time, and so I always try to remove like emotions in my decisions. But I do find that with entrepreneurs and in general, especially with food, when you're so passionate about it, do you ever see that kind of affect some of their decision making, like when you're talking to them about like the strategy?
For sure. I think emotions come up a lot because it's your baby.
Hmm.
People come up with this idea, this product. It takes a lot to get it out there and ready for sale.
Right.
And, then getting it out in the marketplace. You are birthing a baby. I mean, I don't know if you felt that way, but I felt that way.
I felt
So
that way.
of
I felt
course
that
people get emotional.
way.
It goes with the territory.
Yeah. And how do you work? How do you guide them through that?
When they get emotional, I think we just have to bring them back, like you were just talking
Mhm.
about, objectivity. This
Yeah.
is we come up with show them the numbers, show
Mhm.
them where we're going, talk about the strategy.
Mhm.
It's all going to be okay. Let them know that, this is what we're doing. We just have to stick with it. Maybe there's something that we did that didn't work. We got to go back and figure out maybe another tack to take. There's always
Mhm.
different ways and things that we can do to solve problems. We just have to learn from each, individual mistake or problem, and move on. I mean, it's a process.
Yeah. It definitely is. And
When is this therapy for you?
why did you think I started this podcast? It
Yeah,
makes me feel like I'm not
exactly.
going through it alone, you know?
It's true. I mean,
Yeah.
but you can talk through issues and come out the
Yeah.
other side with a better answer and a better perspective on the next day and where you're going.
Right. And I think I love starting the podcast because I was like meeting other people and I was learning from them. They were learning from me. And then, kind of like as I've gotten out there and, through social media or networking, I get a lot of people reach out to me about, like, how did you get started? And how did you, where do I begin? And so it's as much as I'd love to talk to every single person, but like you mentioned, I wear a lot of hats in a day. It's like if I could only do sales, that'd be great. But then it's like sales and it's the taxes and it's like these crazy forms that you need a master's degree. Like I sometimes I open those like distributor forms and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna go take a nap and come back and look at it again.
The forms.
Oh, the
Yes.
forms, Excel spreadsheets. Like I just get, like, and this is coming from a finance person. It's just like the simplest information in the most complicated form I've ever seen.
And you look at it and you're like, pack. Do they want the retail and how many in a pack or
Right.
the case pack or what do we?
So insane. I'm like, and then if you actually check a box, all of a sudden you get like a $500 bill. I'm like, wait a minute, what box was that? I couldn't even read the font.
What about the Whole Foods form that says any error on this will
Oh,
result in a $10,000 fine per SKU?
oh yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, okay.
I get really nervous filling that one out.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no.
Like when I try to explain it to my friends, I'm like, I just don't understand. Like, I mean, only have like 2, 3 SKUs of sauces. They're all pretty much variation of, same jar, same, but I'm like filling out these forms it's so complicated.
It's true. It's true. I remember actually when I first started with my own business and having to fill out the form for Whole Foods. And I mean, I hate to say, I think it took me 2 weeks
Yeah, I
to
know.
fill it out.
I literally had anxiety. I had to like start work on like a cell and then I walk away and I'm like, this is so crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a case of hot sauce. Like, why is this so
Yeah.
complicated? But then
Yeah.
if you fill out the wrong pricing, I mean, that happened to me. Then I had to go back because then that trickles down to the retailers. Then it's like they have the wrong pricing. So it's definitely it was a big learning curve,
Yes.
set up
Yes.
with the distributors. So um,
Pricing is huge, and coming to your SRP with what your selling price is to the distributor, that's quite an exercise, and that's something that I really work with people on because they might think if they're at what this selling price and they might think they're at a certain SRP, but when I walk them through the numbers, they see they're generally most of the time much higher than where they want to be.
right.
And so there's the whole exercise in pricing that it can be really helpful to know in advance from someone like me, myself,
Yeah. Well,
before you get out there.
honestly, I think if I could do it all over again, that would be the first. If I could do it all over again and hire someone to help me with that, that would have been my first go to. Because
Yes.
it doesn't matter if you're, only in like one independent store down the street or only selling on Amazon. I think knowing your margins and figuring out the prices, like, okay, if I get into a distributor, this is my cost, this is the price there, and then direct, what the cost is there, and Amazon, what's your margin there. I think if I paid more attention to that, it would have helped me really be in a different situation, um, and just be more prepared than, kind of doing it fly by night. So
Right.
we're all excited. Like we're all, most food entrepreneurs are foodies, like
Yes.
myself, and we get really excited. We're like, oh my god, I'm so excited! This is great. Everyone's gonna love it. But I've told people over and over again. I mean, I'm 5 years in. I have never looked at a penny differently than I do now. Because before, when was in, like, I had a wedding planning business services, like whatever, knock off $100, whatever. Now it's like when you see a penny times like 10,000 units, and you're getting docked like penny here, 5 cents here. And I mean, it's really the power of penny profits. Uh,
Yes.
and those pennies, like 3 cents off a jar, it changes your percentage in your gross margin.
Yeah, it
Right?
does.
Like the
Right.
labels, if it's between the labels you buy, is it 10 cents a label? Is it 3 cents a label? Is it 2 cents a label? I mean, it adds up so quickly. Like, I mean, I have become a penny pincher. I'm like, like people don't realize, like, we're not selling like one pair of, like a Chanel bag here where the margins is so big per bag. Like every single unit for food, you have to be so careful, um, on managing, I think, the pricing, and, figuring out what that promotion you put out is going to really cost.
Exactly. It's a volume based business. So, like you said, all those pennies add up. And if you don't have your pricing structure right and your cost of goods right, well, at the end of the day, you might be losing money or breaking even on every unit sold. And that's not fun.
No, it's not. I've learned that
So,
that's really not fun.
yeah.
um, yeah, and so what would you say? Like, what is your biggest advice for, like, if someone's like, hey, like how we were in the beginning, like, Marka, I have an idea. Like, where should they start?
I say I think that it's important to look at the 5 P's of CPG and
Mhm,
run through each one
mhm,
and just kind of look at each one and where you're at with each one of those.
mhm,
Price, promotion, place, people, product. You
mhm,
know, go through and my this is my product.
mhm,
Why is it special? Why is it unique? Look at the price. Who are your competitors? What are they doing? Where's your price in relation to them? And down the line, really like get as much information as you can on each one. Look at the category, what's
mhm.
going on in the category, know the category. And once you can kind of wrap your arms around that, you have a better understanding of where you're going to be at
Mhm.
within the category and within the store.
Right. And so how, like, do you, like, kind of like explain, can you explain like your services? Like, do you usually work with someone long term? Do you require like a minimum amount of time, or do you ever offer hourly consultation?
Yeah, so I offer hourly consultations. I my my contract agreement really is month to month,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but I generally have long term relationships
Right.
within years. I
Right.
think people feel safe, kind of knowing they can leave in 30 days if they want. You know what I mean? So there's that sort of safety, and they're not like tied and feeling like, oh, I'm locked into this and I'm
Mhm.
unhappy. I think there's something about that if someone's locked into something, it's like jail.
Yeah, and it's scary, right? It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
change, and until they see results, like, it's really scary to be locked in like a 6 month or year contract.
Right, right. So, yeah, I mean, it's really 30 days. I try to give people the expectation that it could take 6 months if you're not in distribution to get on shelf.
Hmm.
It took
Hmm.
you a year.
Yeah.
So it takes time. People have to be patient. I wish I was a magician, but I'm not.
Right.
And,
Right.
even though I have good relationships and I know what I'm doing, sometimes it's just it's time consuming. It also depends on the time that we're maybe looking to get in stores. It might be not a great time, like if it's during the holidays, or
Mhm.
even right now, kind of Expo West is an interesting time with sometimes buyers saying, "Yeah, come back to me after Expo. I want to see everything before I make a decision about that."
Right.
Well, you're kind of thinking, well, I'm right here with this. Can you just say yes or no? Right. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because then
Yeah.
the fear is, well, now you're going to go to Expo and you're going to be exposed to 3,000 different vendors with God knows how many SKUs. What
Right.
chance do I have once you get back from Expo?
Right. It's so Expo is so overwhelming. Even walking it, like I have to be an introvert for like a week after. I'm like, I get so overstimulated and exhausted. I didn't go this year, as you know,
Yeah.
in full blown wedding festivities.
Yeah, I know.
So
Exciting. The big day.
go this year, but it was fun. I was able to partner up with it Skinny, and that was kind of fun. So I feel good, like I was involved in one shape or form, and you know what? Heck, that might have been more beneficial than me walking the show, right?
It's nice to be there. People are sampling your product. There
Yeah,
was something that I actually went to I tasted it.
you did.
Yeah, yeah, I got to go and try it, and they had a nice presentation, and so that was great.
Yeah, no, and I do love their stuff. It's
Yeah, it's good. I actually have some in my pantry.
Me too. And then so what would you like what keeps you going at this? I know it's a hard job, and and it's high pressure. I can only imagine just like, the expectations that brands have, like what keeps you going and passionate about what you do?
It's exciting.
Mhm.
Every day is new. You have an opportunity to reach out to another retail buyer. There's a category review going on. There's always the hope of like landing the big account,
Mhm.
seeing those purchase orders come in and the commissions rolling in. And it's exciting. I mean, it's fun. And just seeing clients grow and get excited, that's always fun. So it's rewarding.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet. And what is your biggest success story with like a brand that you've worked with?
I mean, I have a few. One of the best ones that I worked with was very soon after I got into this business, and they were at under maybe $1 million in sales when I started working with them, and they
Mhm.
were fantastic at marketing.
Mhm.
And I worked with them for 3.5, 4 years, and they were probably at 12 million by the time we left.
Oh,
With
wow.
with me and really like one other salesperson. So I
Wow.
worked on the big key accounts nationally, and the other guy worked on the independents, and we killed it.
That's
But it's a
amazing.
partnership.
Yeah.
It's the brand doing their marketing,
Yeah.
really getting their name out there, really talking to that customer, and us just, following up and on the leads, filling out those forms, making sure we got the promos down, and just year after year, just watching it grow.
Yeah, and doing the calls, and I mean even promotions, I bet that like cuz you handle all the promotions for the brands, right?
Yes.
Yeah, cuz that was really confusing. I'm like, how does the promotion part work, right? So yeah.
I mean, I feel like sometimes like that's all I do is I've got retailers, hitting me up for, hey, we need a promotion. We need like all year long, all
Yeah.
year long. and you think we do road mapping every summer. So it starts in June, get your
Mhm.
road mapping done around, July, get the promos in with the distributor at that time, and then the retailers start hitting you up. And so I wish we had retailer planning season as well. And as
Mhm.
much as I try to do it, it doesn't matter. It's like I get hit every
Wow.
constantly hit for promotions. And then
Wow.
the brands get tired of it. They're worn out. They don't want to hear anything about another promotion, especially when we're already set up with the promotion and the distributor.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah. So getting on shelf is one thing. Managing everything once you're in distribution is a whole nother, as far as like what's happening with all the chargebacks and the purchase orders and the costing and then promotions,
Yeah, no,
retailer and then distributor.
I think this, this industry is it's just all in the details, like you mentioned, So if someone were, what would you say like the biggest advice that you give someone, like, they're like, hey, Marka, am I ready to work with a broker? Like, when would they know that? Like, what indicators would set them up to be ready to work with you or with a broker?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, because I think there's a variety of different ways. I mean, just because you're not necessarily in stores
Mhm.
yet, that doesn't mean that you're not yet ready. If
Right.
you have a finished product and it's selling pretty well, maybe in the direct to consumer or on Amazon, and you're getting requests to be in grocery stores,
Mhm.
I think it's a great time.
Right.
So it might just be, talking and having a consult and
Mhm.
kind of seeing where you're at. And then
Yeah.
maybe kind of if, going back to the drawing board, if you maybe need to spend some more time on your own, or if you're okay with, hey, this might take 6 months, it might take 7 months to get you going and on shelf. If they're okay with that,
Mhm.
then now's a great time. I think
Right.
because I really feel like the faster that you have a product and you can start getting on shelf and selling, the
Mhm.
better off you are. The
Right.
longer people kind of wait, the money starts drying up. It can be a lot of effort and you can lose a lot of money in those months. And meanwhile, your competitors are getting on shelf and they're starting to sell. So there's that too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know. Like, I think like I hear about people doing R&D for 2 years or 3 years, or spending so much on packaging and stuff, and before they even know if there's a demand for the product. And I'm just like, it blows my mind. And I always tell them, like, like, hey, I mean, I was just like making my own labels or selling, like, doing it in mason jars, like with a little masking tape, just to even see if there's a demand, even just in that close community or vicinity. But I think, like I mean, but it took me, because I had no knowledge of, how, like, to get a shelf stable product, or so it took me like a 3 year of research, but while I had another job, right? Like, yeah,
Exactly.
like, and this was like, hey, I don't know if this is really gonna go through or it's gonna happen, but I just kept chipping away at it and researching it here and there until someone, yeah, when I held that first official jar, it was like, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got here. But I think
Yeah.
sometimes if people get funded, they spend too much time with all the nuances, and they spend too much money in all of those beginning things before even knowing if anyone even interested in that product, or if there's a
Yeah.
demand for it in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly. Yeah, I'd like to know how that works out. I mean, but they probably have something, right?
what do you mean?
If someone spent that, I mean, they're going through those exercises might help them be really ready for the market.
Yeah.
But like you said, we're not sure if there's demand.
Right. Like, I have you read the book Ramping Your Brand?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, so it's I recommend it a lot because when I read it, I was like, man, I wish I had this before. And it, and it just talks about like especially in today's world with social media and everything has to look pretty. It's like focus on if you can make a sale, like the customer, focus on who your customer is. Can you find two customers? Can you find five? Can you find 10? Before you're like tossing just thousands and thousands of dollars and like labels and all these stuff. And so I thought that was a great, just straight up advice,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
no
Exactly.
frills advice.
Yeah. I mean, we both started out the same way with just, selling direct
Yeah,
to
yeah.
stores. I used to roll up to Whole Foods and unload my orders out of the back of my car and,
Wow. I
until
don't
the
think they
distributor
do
came
that.
along.
I don't think they do that anymore, Marka.
That's how old I am.
I don't get that offer.
Whole Foods used to be easy to work with.
Yeah, it's
Easier.
I think it's like also a comparison thing, like trying not to compare yourself to other brands and just like focus on your resources, your cash flow, your business. And it's hard, with LinkedIn. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like such a, loser sometimes, but just kind of sticking to staying disciplined, I think is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
my motto this year.
Yeah.
Stay
Well, and I think, be when people post things on LinkedIn, they might be glorifying some things or, making them sound better than they are. I don't know. I see a lot of things on LinkedIn where I'm like, not, I don't know. It just seems a little self-aggrandizing or a
Yeah.
lot.
All right. So, Marka, thank you for being on the show today. I mean, you've given so much great advice. I think just real, non-fluffy advice. And it's not always the most important things are not always like the fun things. Like your five P's. I'm like, I don't like those five P's, but I've come to learn that that's the first place to start and learning what all of those things mean. So, if someone wants to get a hold of you to talk about your services, how can they find you?
Well, I want to say thanks for having me, and it was great talking with you as well. I hope it was helpful information and also positive. You can find me on Instagram. Grocery Geeks
Uh huh.
is the what do we call that?
Handle.
The handle. And Marka Marka at grocerygeeks.net is a. You could send me an email and we can start a conversation there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I just love chatting with you. And like I said, when I met you, was it last year at the
It
unicorn?
was, yeah, a year ago in
Oh yeah, we had our anniversary. We
we
had our
did we celebrated our anniversary.
Yeah, and I just loved like your energy, and I love, like I love that you're just so approachable and easy to talk to, and kind of like upfront, but not in like a rude way. Where I've had to I've interviewed, and we weren't even interviewing. We were just just coming to try like your coconut wraps that you were.
Yeah.
But I've talked to so many brokers these past 5 years, and some of it's just unbelievable sometimes. Like, I think it's just, they just want that retainer. They don't even ask about the business. It's just, um, so I think that you're really helping people out there and really giving them the nitty gritty details of what it takes to succeed and to grow in retail, and not just like the overall strategy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, let me give
Well,
you
I
the
hope so.
overall strategy. You're giving them like, hey, we have to talk about all these little nuts and bolts because that's the engine that that's what it takes to get things going.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we
Yeah.
need more of you out there. But if anyone is interested, definitely check out Marka on Instagram. I definitely follow her, and Marka at grocerygeeks.net.
Thank you.
Thank you.